The history major at Mount Royal University is taught by faculty members who know history and the reasons we should study it.
People ask me why study history. I ask them to think of a movie or series where the plot revolves around someone who's lost their memory. For whatever reason, they've had their memories erased. They don't know who their friends are, they don't know who their enemies are, they don't know who they're supposed to be in the world. And they struggle. Well, imagine if that happened to you. Imagine what it would mean for a community or a country if there was no shared memory of the past. It would be all chaos all the time. Think about Canada's involvement in a conflict without insight into how that conflict began. No knowledge of the histories of people in the region. No collective memory about what works, what doesn't in either diplomacy or military operations. History is our memory that explains the present day.
I do think my background actually did have a big part in why I chose history. I come from a country so diverse, so many different types of histories. And growing up, I would hear these histories from my own parents and my grandparents. And I think it just kind of, increased my curiosity.
History can teach you about the context for when and where your religion first appeared in the world. It can teach you about changes in attitudes towards human sexuality, child rearing, and family roles. History shows us the connections between cities and farms, or the rise of capitalism and socialism.
Everything's so connected, you keep learning new stuff as you go along, and that's just how my interest peaked. And then I went from the Middle East and to modern Middle East and all the way to, then I went towards Europe, and I slowly started getting more into Canadian histories. So I kind of worked my way across the globe.
One thing that studying how different things were in the past does is to make us aware of how contingent our lives are in the present. Things don't have to be the way they are. If people had made different choices or had different luck, we'd be living in a different world. And once you start acknowledging that things could be different, then you start wondering if they should be different. And maybe history has something to teach us here too. When we're facing some new challenge, whether we want to talk climate change, political movements, war, often these too have historical roots to trace, and perhaps more importantly, we can look for analogies or patterns in the past to consider how people have faced challenges before. How have they succeeded? When have they failed?
I found the stories that I got to look into really interesting. I thought it was fascinating to see the world from different perspectives. To look at these things that I had assumed could only be looked at within one linear direction and see that there were many perspectives on how we get to those stories.
Historians are out there in the world, disseminating their research through podcasting, web pages, blogs, and videos. They work as consultants on policy formation, diplomatic networks, building preservation, movie making, explaining and celebrating how the past shapes the present and the present the future.
Whenever violence erupts in the Middle East, as it too often does, you will immediately hear people everywhere, on the news, on social media, in parliament, in coffee shops and bars, arguing over the history of the region. They argue over which parties are responsible for what, and if anything can be done to stop the violence. And you see countless videos posted online that try to explain the history of the countries involved and all of the political factors in the region. These videos get some things right and some things wrong. That is why it is so important to have history degrees in universities. This is where peer-reviewed research and academic freedom ensures that all statements of fact get double-checked.
I recently actually did a conference at Thompson's Rivers University in Kamloops. I got a chance to present my research, which was kind of conducted on the South Asian diaspora and how everything was under the British Empire, and it was such an exciting opportunity.
Students who know this type of cultural and regional history can not only develop political opinions based on facts, but can also gain meaningful employment everywhere, from museums to large corporations and from commercial media to government ministries.
Universities and other groups maintain a wide array of resources online that help guide history grads into meaningful careers. What gets you the job are the skills and abilities learned in the degree. Learning to write and speak correctly and meaningfully, to think critically and solve problems, to research, analyze, and interpret well, and to help organizations accomplish their goals with sensitivity to a wide array of cultural issues.
History doesn't repeat, but sometimes it rhymes. And by understanding the historical context of many of the problems we're facing today is one useful way to prepare oneself for the future.
Studying history may even provide you with inspiration for what you want to do with your life. When you know something about the history of things that are important to you, your community, or your country, it's empowering and enriches your existence.
When we look at history, we're not just looking at simple facts. We're not just running the numbers and dates. We're really looking at how people lived their lives, what their experiences were. And that's what I'm passionate about, the story of who I am and how I got here, the story of you and how you got here. That's a beautiful and wonderful thing.
I don't know. I love history.